Welcome into another edition of Fourth Quarter Clutch. It's March, and you know what time it is. It's March Madness. I mean, it's the greatest time of year in sports outside of the Super Bowl. And I'm Noah Weintraub, and of course with me as always is Brian Ziegler, and we both did our brackets on Yahoo. And I don't know his bracket name. Mine is Qsing up a shocker because I mean, it's all Cinderellas. It's Cinderellas or bust. But before we start talking about obviously the Final Four championship team, let's talk about some sleepers that you have. Cinderellas. Who you got, Brian?
Actually, one of my big ones is New Mexico. Actually, I like them taking Kansas down. My big issue there is that Kansas Joel Embiid is driving me nuts. Like he's just driving me insane because basically this whole bracket here is relying on the health of one player. Because with Joel Embiid, Kansas is a beast. Okay, but without him, it's like they're a mediocre team. Okay, so they're pretty much identical to New Mexico if without Joel Embiid. So to me, relying on him, the fact that he's injured, the fact they're saying that he may or may not be back by the Sweet 16 says to me they might not even make it to the Sweet 16 without him.
That's a
Okay,
possibility
so
for
I
sure.
got New Mexico possibly upsetting Kansas there in the second round, actually. So that's one of my sleepers. I don't know. I can't say that I would see them going much further than that, but that's a big upset for me.
That is a pretty big upset. For me, obviously we share two more in common, but you and I had a semi disagreement about my other Cinderella pick, and
Yeah.
the reason why is because of their height, and this is Harvard. And yes, Harvard actually knows how to play basketball. I know it's a shocker, but yes, they know how to play basketball.
They
And
studied it at great length.
hey, Jeremy Lin went there, so that's got to count for something.
Okay?
But the thing I like about Harvard and why I think they could be a Cinderella team is that one, they have experience. They were a 14 seed last year. This year they're a 12 seed. And last year they upset New Mexico, and New Mexico was a 3 seed last year. And this is their third straight year that they're in the tournament, which is always a good thing. You want a team with experience.
Yep.
Uh, they have five guys that score in double figures, which is a really good thing. They can shoot from 3 point range. The only thing is that they don't have a starter above 6'7". But the thing is, they have guys on their bench that are tall. They do have Michael Hall. Michael Hall is 6'10". They have Iguana Okoli. I think that's how you say his name. He's 6'8". They have a lot of guys
Hmm.
with height. They just don't start them. I guess they like going with a small lineup, shooting a lot of 3 pointers. And the reason why I like them is because they're going against Cincinnati. Cincinnati, yes, they're a good team, but with them, it's Sean Kilpatrick or bust. Sean Kilpatrick scores almost a third of their, a little more,
Hmm.
a little more than a third of their points, a little less than a third of their points in the game. He averages
Yep.
20.7. The team averages 68.73. And for me, that raises a huge red flag because if he struggles, they're screwed. That's as pure and simple. They are screwed if he struggles.
I agree with you. I'm with you on that. If he struggles, then they're gonna. That's a great word though. If that
Of
whole if
course.
thing. Well, because for me, I don't see Harvard stopping him. That's my problem. I don't see Harvard taking him out of this game. I don't because of that reliance on only one player. I don't see Cincy going past the second round. But I definitely think that they could take on Harvard and that they could beat that team, especially with them not starting that height, like you said. To me, that says Sean or Kilpatrick there, he should be fine. He should get at least one good game there. And I don't trust Harvard personally. Their strength of schedule is pretty much non-existent. I mean, they play in the Ivy League, which has it has like Columbia and Cornell, those kind of teams. Okay, so we're not talking like they have good stats, but they have them against terrible teams. So for me, their strength of schedule is not adequate to put them above Cincinnati in that game.
But remember, there have been teams that have had poor strength of schedules and have gone on deep runs. VCU. George Mason, Wichita State last year,
Right,
Butler.
but
The
none
list
of
goes
them are
on.
named Harvard.
That's true. But
So for me, Harvard, I can't give them I can't give them that because in the past they historically are not a very good team in the tournament, and I can't give them the edge against a team with more experience like Cincinnati.
well, here's food for thought for you. I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking at their schedule, and yeah, you're right. Most of the teams they played are bad, pretty bad, terrible. The list goes on and on. But they
Mm-hmm.
played two teams that are in the tournament. They played Colorado. They lost to them by 8 in November.
Okay.
And they played UConn in January, and they lost by 5. So they know how to play good
That
teams,
is competitive, yes. That is competitive, but we'll see what happens.
of course. And also the why I think they could be a Cinderella is because if they make it to the next round, I could see Michigan State underestimating them, even though they have a great head coach. But let's be honest, if you're in a big time school and you see Harvard, are you going to take them seriously?
Probably not. I have to agree with you on that one.
And,
Probably not.
and then I could see, I mean, Virginia, yeah, they played really good. I could see if everything works out for Harvard, they could make the Sweet 16 Elite 8 run. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's a
No.
Cinderella right there.
There's just too many. There's too many good teams right there in the beginning of part of that bracket for me to say that they're gonna win big time there. Plus, I think Michigan State is such a big time team. I really like Izzo. He's an incredible coach, and for me, that's just a no brainer that they're gonna take a good chunk of that bracket. We'll get to that later though.
Can
Give me
Izzo
another one of
get
your underdogs.
can Izzo get MVP chance? He deserves MVP chance. Forget the players. The guy leads like Final Four teams, no matter who's on the floor. Can he get at least one MVP chant? I'll give him an MVP chant when they're playing. Just be like MVP, MVP.
Well, technically it would be MVC, but okay.
And he's technically playing. He's designing all the plays and stuff like that. Plus, he does jump
Yeah.
sometimes. So I mean, he can be a little active.
Problem with Hizzo for me, his height. He's not that tall of a guy, so I can't give him the edge.
There's a trampoline for a reason.
That's true. That's true. Those halftime shows, they get you.
Who else you got for Cinderella?
All right. Another one of my picks. I really like Oklahoma State. That's one that's a big one. The problem with them is they got Arizona. I mean, that I think is going to be a close game. I think Arizona comes out on top, but they are definitely a potential for making a good run. Let me see here. I had one more that I was thinking about. Oh, Kentucky, of course, Kentucky. I like Kentucky, and they're in a good spot there. I like their team. I like their experience. I think they're in a really, really potentially a great spot to upset Wichita. I got them taking out Wichita in the second round, actually. If that's if Wichita even gets to the second round.
Bandwagon.
But yeah, I got them losing in the third round to Louisville. But that's a pretty good run for an 8 seed team to get to the third round. And I think they can make a good run for sure. Plus, I think that would be a close game between them and Louisville. They're a good team. I had a tough time making that pick. But in the end, I like the experience of Pitino and Louisville and Russ Smith. I like that over Kentucky. But I like Kentucky in this one going against one of the low number 1 seed, Wichita.
The thing that's interesting about Kentucky and the way they are every single year, very few upperclassmen, mostly underclassmen, but they do have height. And this team, I can't even say they remind me of that great Kentucky team from a few years ago, but they do have some qualities of that team. They do have tall guys. They have Willie Cauley-Stein and they have Dakari Johnson, who are both 7-footers. They have scoring. They have assists. And also, in case people are like, oh, they're just a freshman team, they don't really have experience of that kind of thing. John Calipari led a team with Anthony Davis and others to a championship a few years ago against Kansas. And also, what I like about Kentucky and why I think they could be a Cinderella, and I agree with you 100%, is that they have talent. Before the year, You should have seen how many shirts there were. 40-0. We're going undefeated. This is going to be the next undefeated team. If you want one of those shirts, it's probably cost you $1 now. You could wear it. No one's really
To
gonna.
bed.
Yeah, to bed,
Around
workout
the
shirt,
house.
whatever you want to do with that. But I mean, if they could put their heads together, that could be a Final Four team.
I think they're a fantastic team, and they definitely have height over Wichita State, which is another reason why I got them over Wichita. Wichita is a very short team in general. I give them a lot of credit for going undefeated, but Kentucky's in a much tougher division conference, and they got height over Wichita. So I mean, I got it being maybe a close game, but I got them coming out on top just because they're a really good team and they got a lot more experience than Wichita.
And listen to how they did against these ranked teams. They played Michigan State in November. They lost by 4. They played Baylor in December. They were ranked 20th at the time. They lost by 5.
Mm-hmm.
They played UNC in December. They lost by 5. They played Florida in February. They lost by 10. And then they played Florida again, and they got blown out pretty bad. But then they played Florida in the SEC championship game, and they gave them a run for their money that Florida had to grind out, and they only won by 1, and that game came down to the wire.
Right, and that's actually what a lot of the NCAA tournament comes down to. You got to look at how they've been playing the last several games. Like the last 3 to 4 games are that tournament that they just played, and just prior to their conference tournaments. That's a big indicator of where that team is right now, and that'll help you a lot in choosing your brackets.
And for me, it was really tough with Oklahoma State. I struggled with that probably for around 20 minutes. I was looking at that, and I'm like, I really like Marcus Smart. I'm like, why do they have to be a 9 seed? Why couldn't they be higher? They should have been, honestly, at least a 7 seed. I think that's an insult to have them as a 9 seed, but that's a whole other story. And
they would have been in a much better position to go deeper in the bracket too if they hadn't been seeded there.
Honestly, I think if they were maybe like a 6 or a 7 seed, I would have picked them to go to the Elite 8. I think they're that talented. But the thing is that you have Arizona with Aaron Gordon, Nick Johnson.
Yep.
I really like Oklahoma State. I might regret this, that I have Oklahoma State losing in the second round, but I can't pick them over Arizona. I can't. It's really tempting, but I can't.
Yeah. Well, why don't we just continue talking about these number ones here? What do you think of Virginia at number 1?
Honestly, I thought it was well deserved. They won the ACC regular season. They won the ACC conference tournament as well. I mean, that says it all right there. And I would say the second toughest conference in the country. It actually feels weird to say that they're the second toughest, but that just shows you how dominant the Big Ten was this year.
And Virginia's a very good team this year.
Oh, for sure.
I like them.
A lot of people are probably going to underestimate them and think, oh, they're Virginia. They've never been in the tournament before. Let's have them losing to Memphis or George Washington. I heard, what was it, the other day when I was watching Around the Horn, someone picked Virginia to lose to Coastal Carolina. So that just shows you how much respect people have for Virginia.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
What do you think of the Gator Chomp?
I really like Florida a lot, actually. Honestly, I think they got just about every single key to being a great team. They got experience, they got leadership, they got they've got height. They've got the talent level. I mean, they got just about everything, in my opinion, that screams national champion team. Now, I may regret saying that later on, but I might, but at this point, looking at the bracket from what it is right now, I don't regret that at all. So, because this team is basically an amazing team. I think they did an excellent job of recruiting the talent that they did. The height is really there. The experience, everything is just about there to give them a really good run in this tournament. I got them in my Final Four. I got them. I think they are a championship team, honestly.
Gator Chomp.
They are a blueprint for a championship team, in my opinion. I think something really needs to go wrong in this bracket. I mean, basically, I see. I mean, they got Kansas, but like I said before, Kansas gets knocked off. I don't really see anybody beating them.
Nope.
Period.
I totally agree.
Yeah. It all comes down to Joel Embiid.
This reminds me of 2 years ago with Cuse when Fat Bello got suspended.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I know that's going to pain a lot of Cuse fans. For me, and obviously we're talking about how good Arizona is. I don't know how many people have watched any Wichita State games, but I watched a couple of them. And Wichita State, if you look at just their roster and you're like, oh, they don't really have anyone tall. How are they winning these games? How are they getting all these rebounds and that kind of thing? These guys work. They don't play around. There was a video I was watching that they make them go hard every single practice, and when I mean going hard, they have like little sandbags attached to their ankles, so that way it makes them have to work harder in order to grab rebounds. So that's how they're able to compete with guys that are 7 foot, 7'1", all those heights. And I really like Wichita State. Do I like them enough to pick them in the Final Four? I don't like them that much. And it's not even because of their strength of schedule. We've seen teams that have had terrible strength of schedules and gone far. Butler, George Mason, VCU, the list goes on and on and on. And even Wichita State last year, they pretty much returned a good amount of starters from last year. But, I mean...
Well, and they're a good team, but they're in a tough bracket. They're in a really, really tough situation there. I mean, the Midwest is full of good teams. I mean, Kentucky, Louisville, Duke, even Michigan. I mean, to me, Michigan's a younger team. That's why I got Duke going over them. But I mean, just those four teams, I believe are just as good as or better than Wichita. So that's why I got them. I mean, it's a long road for them, and I just don't see them going very far because of that.
And by the way, don't be that idiot that decides, oh, Wichita State didn't really play anyone good. Let me pick one of the whoever wins the 16 seed game on Wednesday night to go beat them. No, don't be that idiot. You're just gonna your bracket. You'll literally go like this right after the game. Be like, oh, there goes my bracket. I'm not winning the $1 billion. And
I was actually looking at those two teams, and Texas there, that Texas team actually has a chance to upset them in the first round. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but they have a chance for sure. I still think we're going to see a close game between those two. I think Wichita comes out on top, but that could be a close game in and of itself, honestly.
Stat of the day, number of 16 seeds that have won a game in the tournament. 0. Don't bet against that number. You will lose every time. 0.
The selection committee knows what they're doing in that situation.
The selection committee pretty much gives the one a free win. If you think about it, almost every single year, the one has dominated that game, except for a few occasions.
It makes sense because, I mean, there were a few that were really, really close, but it makes sense because they're such a good team and they worked so hard all year, they should be given a better spot than some other people. And I actually agree with Wichita State being put as a number 1 seed because they went undefeated. No, they're not in a great conference. No, they're not in they didn't have a huge strength of schedule, but it's an incredible feat to go undefeated completely. I mean, they're the first team to ever do that. So, to me, that warrants a number 1 seed. Yes, they're getting some criticism for it. Personally, I think they would get more criticism if they didn't put Wichita State as a number 1 seed. So that's my personal opinion of that, and I think that was a very good way to take care of that because Wichita State was put as the number 4 of the 1 seeds. So to me, that was the right place for them.
Or at least we're assuming they were put as the number 4. I don't know. The way they introduced it on the CBS show, they introduced Wichita State before they introduced Virginia. So I don't know. Wichita State might have been the 3rd number 1 seed, and that would actually make sense.
Well,
Because
but they put him in a tougher bracket, so that makes sense to me. And ahead of Virginia, I would disagree with that because Virginia is in the ACC. They won the ACC tournament. I mean, that's just they're totally deserving of a higher ranking than Wichita State. And honestly, I think they're in a better bracket situation to go further than Wichita State.
let's talk about teams
But
that we're kind of concerned with for the tournament that made it kind of hesitant to pick one team to win or one team to lose. Obviously, you said Kansas. Do you have anyone else that you were really hesitant, being like, I really want to pick that one team, but I can't do it. I can't.
I'm really worried about Syracuse.
Yeah.
First of all, I mean they're a good team. They're in a good situation bracket wise, but they're so up and down. They could fall off anywhere. Like literally, I mean anybody could just knock them off because they play down to teams too much. So that's one that I have a little bit of trouble with picking. Wisconsin, I have trouble with Wisconsin. I mean, I want to pick them, but I don't want to pick them. It's so hard, and every single year my bracket gets busted by Wisconsin. So I'm like, maybe I should pick them, but then this could be the year where they suck, and then that part breaks my bracket. It's like a recurring theme for me that every year Wisconsin just destroys my bracket for some reason, and I don't understand why. But they're a team that I'm like so on the fence about. It's crazy.
For me, beside Oklahoma State, which really did pain me, I remember talking to you. I talked to my other friend, and I said, I really wish they were somewhere else, but obviously I picked Arizona because I'm going to be safe. I'm not going to be that risky. The other team that really pained me, and I was looking at it for a while as well, was North Carolina versus Iowa State. And I was looking back and forth in this, and I'm like, North Carolina has some really good wins, but then they've also struggled against some terrible, terrible teams. Oh my God, they lost to Belmont. I mean, come on, who loses to Belmont? Seriously. UAB. Who loses to UAB?
Yep.
Wake Forest.
I totally agree.
Who loses to Wake Forest? I mean, some of these teams are terrible that they've lost to. It's just insane.
Yeah.
But then
I totally agree.
they also beat Duke. They also beat Pitt. They also beat
It's
Kentucky.
another up and down team.
They also beat Louisville, and honestly, I could see them making a Final Four run, but the only way I would pick them to go to the Final Four is if I have enough faith in Roy Williams to lead that team to the Final Four, and I don't have enough faith in Roy Williams to lead them to the Final Four, and that kills me to do that. The other thing that killed me, and this was really, really tough. This actually determined my championship game matchup, was Louisville versus Duke.
Oh yeah.
Oh man. Do I go?
Well, right there. I mean, Patino versus Krzyzewski. I mean, such a hard pick.
Experience versus Jabari and Plumlee, and even Hood has a good amount of experience, but still, and Hood. I mean,
we're actually split on this pick, you and I, because this is such a hard pick to make.
But
I got Duke, you got Louisville. I mean, that's the thing. It's pretty much like a 50-50 toss-up. You can flip a coin and just, whatever it lands on.
If this is the reason why I don't have a perfect bracket, I won't be mad. Obviously, I'll be mad if it's a different reason, but if this is the reason why, and the team I have in the finals and one team wins over the other, I won't be mad. I'll be like, okay, so pretty much I went with my gut, and if I went the other way, then Louisville could have been in the finals. So
yeah,
it pained me.
Yep.
Oh man.
Well, but if it's the only pick that messes up your bracket, that would suck.
Do you have a lot of upset picks, by the way?
Not yet. I'm actually gonna do just a little bit more editing of my first round. I don't have a lot of upsets yet, but there's a couple in there for sure. There's definitely a couple upsets here that I like. I mean, first off, I have the New Mexico beating Kansas in the second round. That's a big upset. That's a huge upset. I mean, I'm gonna check probably later on this evening. I'm gonna have to check out what Joel Embiid's status is just to see what the heck is going on because he's driving me nuts. But that's one of my big ones. Of course, Kentucky over Wichita State. That's a big upset for me. Um, Honestly, I'm a little concerned about Villanova.
I am too.
I'm a little concerned about Villanova actually. In that, I mean, they started off real bad. They got really good. It's like, where are they now? You know, and
I don't know if you
I'm
saw
not
them
sure.
against Creighton, but Creighton just smacked them down twice.
Yeah, exactly.
Smacked them. It wasn't even close. I remember because I was waiting for the St. John's game to start, and I'm like, why do they still have this crap on the TV? Villanova's losing by 25. They don't have a chance. It was like 100-75. I'm like, just end it already. Just end the massacre. End it.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough. Okay, so let's go Final Four. What's your Final Four?
I have the same Final Four as Obama. I don't really know how I feel about that.
Problem,
That's
problem.
either it's either a really bad thing or a really good thing. I mean, Obama's been hit or miss with his brackets. He's
Yeah.
had some good ones. I have Florida, Michigan State, Arizona, and Louisville.
Okay. I like that. I like that.
I hope so.
At this right now, I got Florida, Zona, Michigan State, and Duke. So that's where we defer a little bit. I'm gonna do a little bit of editing on my bracket, so that could change possibly, but I don't see it changing a whole ton, honestly. Okay, so what do you got? Who do you got as your championship, Noah?
I got Florida versus Louisville, and honestly,
Gators, it is.
Gator Chomp. I predicted 65-60, and honestly, if the this is gonna piss me off. If the reason why I don't end up winning the $1 billion is because of my tiebreaker final score, I think that's insane. I just want to say that
Oh
by the
yeah,
way.
yeah. Um, I think I could go with Florida and Duke in that one and take Florida the Gators over them. I think Duke is a very very solid team this year. I think they could make a great run, and they actually with being in the same bracket as Wichita, and they're in a tough bracket, but the bottom part of that bracket there gives them a pretty solid road. Their main big concern would be Louisville and from there, Arizona. So I mean, a little bit tougher as you go along, but before that, I really don't see any of these other teams beating them out. So I got Duke, Florida, and then I'm gonna take Florida.
So the one question I have for you is there a certain approach you do for a bracket? Like, do you take chances if you, let's say, you have a team like Florida. Actually, no, let's say
Mm-hmm.
you have Colorado Pitt that you're deciding between, and you obviously have a lot of faith in Florida. Are you willing to take a
Mm-hmm.
chance in the 8-9 matchup like that, and then pretty much assume, you know what, I'll either get it right, I'll either get it wrong, but you know what, Florida's going to beat whoever plays either one of them? Or do you try and pick automatically whoever's going to be the winner?
I go matchup by matchup, just one team on the other. How do they line up against each other, and I pick my wins from that. Um, what team is better, and by matchup, because basically when you're looking at all these games, you can't say, okay, this team is going to go further just because they're a better team. You got to look at how the team plays and their matchups that they go against, because one team could be this fantastic team and they could be great, but they could be going against a team that exploits all of their weaknesses, like period, and it just totally destroys them. Okay, and I mean, so it's sort of like a weakness analysis thing. For me, the reason why I got Florida going so far is because there really aren't a lot of weaknesses there.
I totally agree.
So, so it's like, what weaknesses are there to exploit is the thing for that. So the fewer weaknesses, the better the chance they got of going further. And then of course coaching. Coaching is a huge thing because if you coaches, they call timeouts. They have a big effect on the game actually. So, I mean, it's tough.
For me, definitely experience. Experience plays a huge role. I don't care what
I
you
have to
say.
give you
And
experience, yes.
and this was, I mean, if even if Syracuse was still on their really really hot roll, I'm always really, really hesitant when I find out that there's a freshman point guard on a team that's on an NCAA team because they have the ball in their hand the most. Unless you're Doug McDermott, you most likely
Mm-hmm.
have the ball in your hand the most, and especially like with Syracuse. Syracuse is playing Western Michigan. It's a 3-14 matchup. Even though the fans seem neutral, they're always rooting for the underdog. Always, unless they're a guaranteed Syracuse fan, they are always rooting for the underdog. And
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, there's one thing if you're playing in like a road arena in like UNC or Duke or anywhere else because you know what's going to happen. But it's going to be interesting to see how someone like Tyler Ennis or Aaron Gordon or Jabari Parker or Julius Randle, or the list goes on and on and on of these guys, how
Mm-hmm.
they'll react to, okay, these guys are really cheering for me right now. And then all of a sudden the score is really tight. Okay, now they're kind of booing. Now they're kind of cheering for the other team. So I always get really hesitant because it could cause them to be more turnover prone, or miss more shots or anything like that. So I typically, unless there's a really really good team surrounding them, I do not pick teams with freshman point guards to go far in the tournament. I have Syracuse losing in the round of 32, so that just shows you how much faith
Okay.
I have.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
My
experience
my tough part with that is that they aren't a very good road team.
that too.
So I mean, just the fact of that, they just aren't a very good road team, so they could lose anywhere.
My thing also is that really really makes me very hesitant to choose certain teams are teams where they rely heavily on one person, like
Mm-hmm.
Cincinnati. Cincinnati, as I said before, Kilpatrick scores a good amount of their points. If one guy
Yep.
struggles, they're screwed. At least with Creighton, Creighton averages almost 80 a game. McDermott averages 26.9. So that's around a third, but I
It's
mean,
less than, yeah.
yeah, I mean it's around a third, give or take. But
Mm-hmm.
but they also have a good amount of experience. They've won with Doug McDermott struggling before. And the one thing I will say about Creighton, which will probably influence a bunch of people's selections, is that when they played St. John's, McDermott had, I think it was 25, 26 points with 8 minutes left to go. The game was really close. St. John's had a combination defense led by Jakar Sampson. They also had Chris Obekba, who's just a blocking machine. They had Orlando Sampson. The list goes on and on. They had all these different guys uh, try and do a pressure kind of defense and get the ball out of McDermott's hands. And Creighton did lose that game. So if you
Mm-hmm.
pressure a really good guy enough, they could struggle. And honestly, if I'm on a team like Louisiana or Mercer or any of these other teams, why would I have someone like Jabari Parker or Doug McDermott try and beat me? Why not have one of these other guys be like, okay, I trust him more than I trust you. Beat us.
Totally agree.
And the other thing is coaching. Coaching is huge. Tom Izzo, my
Huge.
my Final Four pretty much has teams with coaching experience in the NCAA tournament. Arizona has tremendous experience, even though yes they do have a new coach, but they're tradition. So that's the only team I have that doesn't have a good amount of Final Four experience. Billy Donovan, 2 national championships. Tom Izzo won a national championship.
Mm-hmm.
Rick Pitino has won a national championship multiple times. He won, I think, also with
Yep.
Kentucky, if I remember right. So that also is huge for me. I don't really care about non-conference schedule. I don't really care about conference schedule. That's all garbage. We've learned plenty of times that a team could have a terrible conference schedule, terrible non-conference schedule, and still do well in the tournament. So that's pretty much irrelevant for me. That's not why I'm picking Wichita State to struggle, but I know that's gonna be a lot why a lot of people are gonna pick them to struggle, and that's just a shame if you pick them just to struggle just based on that reason. Pick them based on their talent. Don't don't pick against them pretty much because of that.
I totally agree. Yep. I pick them. I'm going against them because they got height problems, and you know the teams they're going against are really really difficult teams. They're in a tough situation in the bracket. That's why I got them going out early. Yeah. One more thing before we head out. Free throw percentage. It is highly
Oh,
underrated. Okay. Free throw percentage. Okay. How a team does from the line is a huge factor because it comes down every single one of these games come down a ton of them when you get a close game, especially in the 16 or later. You got free throws you got to shoot. You got at least a dozen per team. I mean, something around there. You got at least a dozen points or more that are deciding whether or not these teams win. Okay, so never underestimate free throw percentage. Period.
For me, it's turnover margin. I mean, free throws, yes, free throws are big, obviously, because they could sway a game, but
You need them to win, my
of
friend.
course.
You need them to win.
But for me, when I really look at a team, and you can look at them on NCAA.org, they list all the different teams and have all these different rankings. For me, turnover margin, because that shows them one. That shows me one. If they have a terrible turnover margin, they don't know how to play in a pressure situation. Two, that shows inexperience. Three, that shows bad coaching. That's literally what
Yeah.
I think when I see a bad turnover margin. I have picked against certain teams
Oh
just
yeah.
because they have a bad turnover margin. They might have everything else good, but if you have a bad turnover margin and you're playing against a team like Delaware or even any of these other teams and they have a better turnover margin, I want a team that knows how to hold on to the ball. Because if you don't know how to hold on to the ball, you're not getting to the free throw line. It doesn't matter what you do. You're not getting to the free throw line. That's the key
Oh yeah.
thing.
Oh yeah. But I saw a team lose because a guy fouled somebody coming off of rebounding off a free throw. Like that's just crazy. Okay, he fouled somebody because he was trying to get the rebound off of a free throw. Okay, so it's anything can happen. All right, all bets are off. Well, not really, but you know what I mean.
And if this advice works and you somehow win the $1 billion, I would take 1%, 2%. I'm not greedy,
We'll take a little small portion of that and split it.
but
Go.
but thank you for tuning in to another edition of Fourth Quarter Clutch. We will be posting our brackets. You can scrutinize them as much as you want. I honestly am interested to see what you think, and I'm pretty sure Brian is as well. And if you're one of those people that pick one of these crazy teams like Albany or Weber State or I don't even know any of these other teams that some people will pick that for some odd reason. But if you want to defend yourself, go for it. I mean, if you want to defend a 16 team and go being a one team, I'll just post up. I'll just post a picture with this number, and then I'll see your reaction. You don't bet against zero. Never,
Never.
never. You lose every time. It's like the Cubs. You lose every time. But I'm Noah Weintraub, and with me as always is Brian. And enjoy March Madness. Just don't do anything stupid with gambling.